We're very lucky at Newgate to have in our racing team militarised, a 3-time Group 1 winning son of Dundeel, of course. Joined by Henry Field here from Newgate Farm, joined by his trainer, Chris Waller. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Before we go in and talk about militarised in detail, Chris, I thought it'd be interesting coming from you, given you're the champion trainer, a leading yearling buyer, a trainer that's produced horses like Zoostar, who's the heir to the throne in terms of champion side in Australia going forward. What is it to you that does make a top stallion?
Ability on a racetrack, a nice horse to work with, and the bloodlines to go with it. And if you're missing one of those ingredients, I don't think you can be a champion sire. I don't think you can attract mere owners, and I don't think you can win stallion making races. And this colt has each of those attributes.
How do you view the colts partnerships, and what challenges does that come with for you?
Well, it's a unique situation. Everybody wants the best individual, but buying them post Group 1 success is very difficult. There's not enough to go around. So you can see people joining and becoming bigger, more powerful, and elevating their success to a lot higher rate than before. And yeah, it's a unique situation for me as a trainer to train for several leading powerhouses, and it's one that we're very grateful for. The challenges are you've got to get results, you've got to win stallion making races. It's as simple as that, otherwise the reinvestment's not there. And my business, like everybody else's business, is making sure people want you to train their horses. So yeah, from the Coolmore group, and thanks to Henry Field, Newgate and his partners, we've been entrusted with a few horses as well, and blessed with a horse like Militarised to come onto the scenes. Good looking colt, well bred, and backed it up with racetrack success.
You come across as someone that's obviously been successful before these colts. Have you changed anything, if much at all, for these colts? Obviously there's a lot more emphasis on 2-year-old racing and early 3-year-old racing.
No, I haven't. We've just had confidence to back the right horse. When the horse shows you ability, I think identifying talent is the key to any successful team, whether it be your favourite sport, NFL overseas, or NRL here in Australia, or you name it. You've got to have a good scout looking for the right horses, identifying talent. With racehorses, it's no different. Identify talent, look after it, make sure you get the best out of it, put it in the right races. Horses got above average ability, they make you look good, but identifying that talent is the key from day one, and that's what we saw in Militarised.
Very interesting. And H, I suppose, like Militarised was in that first group of colts that you chose to have trained by Chris. Was that decision based on Militarised, the style of horse you had bought?
Yeah,
that year,
well, initially that was the first group of colts in recent years. Our partnerships put in with Chris, and I think we sent Chris 4 or 5 colts, and we gave Chris a couple of Dundeals and I think a Zoostar and a Justify, a couple of Justifies in that group. They were horses we thought would take a bit of time, so it was very interesting when Militarised, I think it was a January of his 2-year-old year, was in a very hot 2-year-old race at Canterbury, early, sharp. And what I suppose in my mind, I'd pigeonholed Militarised as a horse to be sort of a winter type 2-year-old. And he'd obviously worked through Chris's system, and Chris had seen something in the horse that he thought he's probably more precocious than perhaps we thought he'd be. And he was very, very, very dominant on debut, and what ended up being a very strong 2-year-old race at Canterbury. I think Queen of Dragons might have run second, who won a group race just recently. And that sort of set him off, his career off, and that precocity was something which I loved in this horse, and and really set a good platform for the rest of his career.
Was there a time that you remember, Chris, when you first saw that glimpse from Militarised early? Like, he's the son of Dundeel at a Derby mare. Henry's no doubt ringing you most days about him. But was there a glimmer or a glimpse at the first time you thought to yourself, gee, this horse might be okay?
When James McDonald won in a trial. He did it on his own ability. He wasn't forced to win a trial. He just did it naturally. And I remember that day, it looked sharp. And so I went and had a look at his pedigree. Obviously knew he's by done deal. Didn't know much about the dam at that stage. And then found out she's a Dabawi mare, which is one of the best in the world in terms of broodmare size or size himself. So that was exciting to see that stick out. And from that point on, yeah, his speed. Dundee was a very good horse, exceptional racehorse. Came over from New Zealand, won at Canterbury on his debut, was his first Australian run, and continued to go from there and beat the best of them here, not just easily, by panels. So, yeah, it was exciting to get a done deal. I think done deal wasn't just a stayer. He's actually a miler, I think. Could have even been sharper if he'd been trained for a shorter race. He was exceptional.
So we were talking to Bjorn Baker about Dundee, and he said Murray Baker will say he's the fastest horse he ever trained, and he had the class to stretch, but he had amazing speed.
Yeah.
And you know, we make mention of the great D. Wayne Lucas, and he Hall of Fame trainer, probably the Chris Waller of North America, and he said the three most important ingredients in a stallion are speed, speed, and speed. And you know, I think that's, you know, whether we're bringing on the Golden Slipper winner or the Coolmore winner or a horse like Dundee, who won group, sort of like Militarized, who won Group 1s out to a mile, and he was running in Cox Plates as a 3-year-old. That natural speed is such an important part of the equation.
Horses don't have to be 2-year-olds, but they need to be well prepared. So they need speed and be forward enough to be able to set themselves up for a 3-year-old year. So what Militarized did was a bonus, winning 2 Group 1s as a 2-year-old, the size and the Champagne. But it set him up properly for another stallion making race in the Golden Rose.
I remember with Militarized, after he won that race at Canterbury, he was, you know, again, I suppose in my mind I'd horse pigeonholed as a, you know, later maturing horse, and it was probably a month from that race into where you wanted to run the next time, and there was a nice 7 furlong 2-year-old handicap at Newcastle. I think it's called the Max Lees Classic or the Paul Perry Handicap or something. And I said, Chris, I'd like to run the horse there. And you said, I want to run the horse in the Todman. I said, mate, you are crazy. This horse is a done deal. It's had 1 start against Cylinder and the 4 favourites for the Golden Slipper. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Anyway, so I thought, well, you don't tell Picasso how to paint. We'll run him in the Todman. And anyway, he ran 3rd in the Todman just behind Cylinder. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is incredible. So it was a day that was a day for me, Chris, that I thought we've got a real horse here.
Look, I think he sort of only had 3 runs over 1,200 metres. He won his first race on debut, as you say, pretty handy field, and didn't know what he was doing. Todman, he was just getting warmed up the last part, and it was an important step along the way. First up as a 3-year-old, carried a big penalty for being a multiple Group 1 winner, beaten under a length without any luck in the running, and that's been the only 1,200 metre run. So, yeah, like what Murray Baker said about Dundee, I think if you actually trained Militarized for a 1,200 metre race, you wouldn't be disappointed.
I'm going to ask you that because I think naturally you thought he's always a size Champagne horse, but you, like with the Todman, ran him the Todman, and you could have just gone to value or something else to set him up in the size, but you decided to run him a slipper. Now, we never got to see how he ran the slipper because he just got, I mean, if people go back and watch the replay, he just got absolutely poleaxed, right? But it feels to me like you felt with the right run, with the race the way it was, he might have been really effective in that slipper. He might have been really.
Well, I think Militarized is a new age horse. We want runners in everything. That's Australia. He'll give you that horse. He is that horse. The reason he won a size and a Champagne, it was timing more so than distances. He'll be wherever you need him to be when you need him to be there. So. Speed, middle distance, and we see all this prize money, not just in speed races, probably more so in middle distance races. And I think that's one thing probably missing in the breeding puzzle is we're very good in Australia breeding speed. If we can be equally as effective in the mile and take horses like Militarized and their progeny overseas, I think the rest of the world will stand up, especially when you've got a horse out of a Dabawi mare strong miler type who's also good at speed. I think that's going to be a big part of building our breeding industry, not just pigeonholing it to the speed that we're very good at.
Yeah, I think we've seen that for the Cox Plate and that sort of thing, aren't we, H? Like, the amazing thing about this horse is he's a dual-winning 2-year-old in the autumn in Sydney, and then he's gone on a Group 1 race at 3 as well, and just been so effective from 12 to a mile, 2,000 metres. Only he, Animo, Extreme Choice, and I think it might just be those three. There might be another one. The last decade, I've actually won a race in the autumn at 2 and then won another Group 1 at 3.
Is that right?
Pretty rarefied air, right?
Interesting.
And like you're saying, we're seeing the effectiveness of Cox Plate winners now in this on the stallion rosters, right? They're making a real impact, Chris, aren't they? That ability to carry speed over that little bit further, given that versatility, and their progeny can just rack up so much prize money. This horse is obviously a horse that came back at 3 years, say, was set for the Cox Plate, right? You don't do that without having a good rap on the horse. Set for a Cox Plate, working through the Guineas and the Golden Rose, but the Golden Rose was something pretty electric, wasn't it?
Well, his final 600, it would have been frightening the time that he ran. Gary Chittick always says, the great Gary Chittick, the most important thing in a stallion is they can run final fast 3 furlongs in 33 seconds, and his last 600 was electric in that race. To come from a near unwinnable position, I'd written him off in my mind, and the acceleration that he showed to beat the best 3-year-old colts was quite awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a big asset to the horse. It's tough, he tries hard. And the odd occasion he's been beaten, he's always been attacking the line. He's always had his head in front past the post. Even those couple of victories he's run second in good races, even the Cox Plate, nothing went his way, and he was beaten 2 lengths. I felt sorry for the horse on the Cox Plate day because he was good enough to win it, simple as that. And no one's fault. These things happen. That's racing. You just need the bit of luck along the way. And it was against him in the 2,000 metre Cox Plate. Otherwise, he's probably a Cox Plate winner as well.
I like it. I'll leave the final word to you, H. What about him tells you he's going to be on the roster for a long time?
I think his physicality. He's a horse. He's a very, very good-looking horse, medium-sized, great quality. Just a very sharp, attractive horse with great energy, a horse with great talent, precocity, a horse that could stretch, a horse that could sprint. And I think, really importantly, and as Chris made mention to, and I think it's a really interesting point, one of the keys to good stallions, I strongly believe, is they've got to be tough. They've got to be sound, they've got to be clean-winded, they've got to be horses that can handle... Like I think we've got to a point now, and you make the point, Chris, about raising horses and breeding horses for a bit further. I think we're breeding soft horses in Australia now, and I think he's the opposite of that. He's a horse that dances every dance, always turns up, and I think that will hold him in great stead.
Yeah, you're 100% right. He's never had a day's soreness, and that's a true testament of a good, sound horse.
And his pedigree just opens him up to so many of our best lines in Australia for the last decade too. He's going to be such an easy horse to mate to. Whether you want to breed yourself a slipper winner, you go that way. If you want to breed yourself a derby horse, he's going to be able to have that lovely versatility. So, Chris, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. I know you're extremely busy, so thank you.